The sky above the battlefield was filled with fire. Explosions painted the black space with red and gold. Metal ships screamed across the void, their engines shaking the stars themselves. Among them, a single human pilot fought for his life. His name was Daniel, and he had only one goal: survive. Daniel's small fighter craft twisted between burning wrecks. Every second, enemy lasers cut past him. He had fought many battles, but tonight felt different. Something in the air was wrong. Something was waiting. Suddenly, his scanner lit up. A small life form, alone, trapped on a floating piece of broken metal. Daniel zoomed in. He saw her. An alien girl, young, maybe his age, maybe younger. Her silver hair floated around her face as her oxygen mask flickered with sparks. She was dying. She was not his ally. She was not his enemy. She was just... Helpless, Daniel hesitated. His orders were clear: no rescues, no distractions. Humans and her kind were not friends. But as he watched her struggle, his heart made the decision for him. He turned his ship around. Alarms screamed at him. Warning! Fuel low. Enemy ships approaching. He ignored them. He pushed his fighter closer to the broken wreckage. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. Hang on. Just a little longer. The alien girl looked up. Her eyes widened when she saw the human craft hovering above her. She expected death. She expected the end. Instead, Daniel opened his hatch and jumped. His boot slammed against the floating wreck. He clipped his safety line, grabbed her arm, and pulled her close. Her oxygen mask blinked red. Without a word, Daniel pressed his own spare mask to her face. She gasped in shock, then in relief. Air filled her lungs again. Her eyes met his. For a brief moment, silence fell around them. In the middle of war, there was only one truth: he had saved her, but saving her was only the beginning. Enemy fire lit up the wreck. Ships were circling back. Daniel dragged her toward his craft. Move, he shouted, though he knew she might not understand. Still, she ran with him, her thin frame shaking. He pushed her inside his fighter, sealed the hatch, and threw himself back into the pilot's seat. Engines roared. The ship lurched forward. Lasers followed like wolves chasing prey. Daniel's hands moved fast across the controls. He dove, he rolled, he climbed. His fighter screamed as he pulled every ounce of power from the engines. The alien girl clutched the seat, staring at him with wide, glowing eyes. Fear, confusion, and something else. Something close to hope. He cut through the battlefield, weaving between burning wrecks. His own squad shouted in his earpiece, "Daniel, what are you doing? You're breaking formation." He muted the call. He couldn't explain. They wouldn't understand. The escape was brutal. Enemy ships fired again and again. One shot grazed his wing, spinning the fighter. Daniel gritted his teeth, forcing the ship steady. He would not let go, not now. Not when her life was in his hands. Finally, the battlefield thinned. The stars grew clearer. For a moment, it looked like they had made it. Daniel allowed himself a breath. He glanced at the girl. She was watching him, silent, her face pale but alive. Then, everything changed. A massive shadow fell across his ship. A huge alien cruiser appeared from nowhere, blocking his path. Its guns locked onto his fighter. A cold voice cut through his radio. Not human, alien, powerful. Surrender the human. Daniel froze. His heart pounded. He was the human. But why would they order him to surrender? Himself? The cruiser opened fire. A shockwave slammed into his ship. Alarms screamed. Lights died. His fighter spun helplessly. With one last look at the alien girl, Daniel whispered, "Hold on." Then the world went black. Daniel woke to silence. His wrists were bound. The air was heavy with strange scents. He was no longer inside his fighter. He was in a prison cell, its walls glowing with alien light. The alien girl stood outside the bars. Her eyes glimmered in the dim light. She was safe, alive, but her expression was unreadable. Guilt, pain? Something deeper? Daniel forced his voice through dry lips. "Why am I in chains?" The girl did not answer. She only lowered her head. Behind her, armored guards stood with weapons ready. Their eyes burned with distrust, even hatred. Daniel realized the truth: he had saved her life. And for that, he would pay the price. The cell was silent, but Daniel could feel the weight of 100 eyes pressing down on him. The walls glowed with a pale blue light, humming softly as if alive. Strange symbols floated across their surface, changing every few seconds. The air was thick, cold, and carried a faint metallic taste. He tried pulling at the restraints on his wrists, but they didn't move. The material was unlike anything he had ever seen. Not metal, not rope. Something alien, stronger than steel. His head throbbed. The last thing he remembered was the alien cruiser. The shockwave, the blackout. Now here he was, unarmed, trapped, alone. And then he heard footsteps. Slow. Careful. Each step echoed like thunder in the silent corridor. Daniel lifted his head. The alien girl appeared. She stood just outside the glowing bars. Her silver hair reflected the cell's light, shimmering like liquid. Her eyes, bright, almost too bright, studied him with an intensity he couldn't read. She said nothing at first. Only silence. Daniel broke it. His voice was rough. "Why am I here? I saved you. And this is my reward?" The girl flinched. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Something in her face, something fragile, told him she carried guilt. But still, she said nothing. Behind her, 2 guards in black armor watched. Their weapons were sharp and cruel, humming with energy. Their alien eyes never left him. Daniel could almost feel their hatred pressing through the bars. Finally, the girl spoke. Her voice was soft, melodic, but trembling. "You should not have helped me." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "You were dying. I couldn't just let you die." Her gaze dropped to the floor. "And now you will die instead." The words hit him harder than any explosion. He leaned forward, straining against the restraints. "Why? What crime did I commit?" "Saving your life?" The guards shifted. One hissed something in their language. The girl stiffened but did not reply. Her hands clenched at her sides. She looked torn, caught between 2 worlds. Daniel's mind raced. The situation made no sense. Humans and her kind were enemies, yes, but there were rules, codes. If a soldier saved another in battle, even from the enemy, there was honor in it. At least that was what he had believed. But here it was different. He stared at the girl. "Tell me the truth. What are they planning to do with me?" She hesitated. The silence stretched too long. When she finally spoke, her words were barely more than a whisper. "The council believes you are dangerous. Too dangerous to live." Daniel laughed once, bitter and sharp. "Dangerous? I risked everything to save you. That's their proof?" Her eyes flickered, pain hidden behind them. "Humans are unpredictable. They fear what they cannot control. And you broke their law. You touched me. You gave me your air. That act is forbidden." Daniel froze. Forbidden? He had not known. How could giving someone a chance to breathe be a crime? But from the way her voice cracked, he knew she wasn't lying. For a moment, silence filled the cell again. The hum of the glowing walls, the breathing of the guards, the pounding of Daniel's own heart, it all blended into one heavy sound. Then Daniel leaned back against the cold wall, his voice quiet but sharp. "So that's it then? I save your life and they kill me for it. What about you? Do you agree with them?" The question cut deeper than he expected. The girl's eyes widened, her lips parted as if to protest, but no words came. Instead, she looked away, ashamed. Daniel studied her carefully. She wasn't his enemy, not truly. Something inside her warred with the chains of her people. He could see it in the way she shifted, in the way her fists clenched, in the way her voice trembled. He pushed again. "Tell me, when I pulled you from the wreck, when I gave you my mask, did you want me to leave you there? Did you want to die?" Her silence was the answer. The guards barked something harsh in their language. One slammed the butt of his weapon against the floor, the sound sharp and threatening. The girl stiffened, then turned and walked away, her silver hair vanishing into the shadows of the corridor. Daniel's heart sank. He was alone again. Alone, but with more questions than before. He sat in the dim light, thinking. If what she said was true, then his life was already over. They would not let him go. Not alive. But why did she look at him with such conflict? Why did she hesitate? Daniel knew one thing: she owed him. Deep down, she knew it too. And maybe, just maybe, that guilt could save him. Hours passed. The alien guards changed shifts. Strange voices echoed through the halls. Daniel pretended to sleep, but his mind stayed sharp. He remembered every detail of the girl's words. Forbidden, dangerous, unpredictable. He wasn't sure what those aliens believed about humans, but he was certain of one thing. They feared him. Not his weapons, Not his army, him, his choices, his will. And if they feared him this much, perhaps that fear was his only weapon left. As he drifted between thought and exhaustion, Daniel whispered to himself, "I saved her life. She won't let me die. She can't." But in the silence of the alien prison, no one answered, only the chains remained. The council chamber was nothing like Daniel had ever seen. He had been dragged there in chains, escorted by 6 guards whose weapons never lowered, not even for a second. The hall was wide and tall, the walls glowing with shifting colors that seemed alive like liquid light. Strange pillars rose into the ceiling, humming softly as if they were breathing. At the far end sat the council. 7 figures taller than most soldiers, dressed in robes that shimmered with symbols. Their faces were hidden behind masks of metal and glass, their voices deep and heavy, carried through strange translators. Daniel stood in the center of the chamber, bound, yet holding his head high. His jaw was tight, his eyes steady. He would not give them the satisfaction of fear. The first counselor spoke, voice sharp as a blade. "You are human. You are dangerous. You acted without reason, without law. You touched one of our kind. You gave her your air. This cannot be forgiven." Daniel's mouth twisted. "So saving her life is a crime?" The chamber echoed with a low murmur like distant thunder. The counselor's reply was cold. "It is not saving. It is infection. Humans corrupt everything they touch. Your kind acts without balance, without control. This unpredictability cannot exist among us." Daniel laughed once, bitter. "Unpredictability? That's your word for compassion?" The guard shifted angrily, but the counselor raised a hand. The chamber grew quiet again. Another counselor spoke, this one softer but no less harsh. "We do not question your intent. We question your nature. Humans do not follow law. Humans create chaos. You risked your people. You risked ours. For what? For one life. A worthless act. A dangerous act." Daniel felt his blood boil. Worthless? Her life isn't worthless. None of us are. For the first time, one of the masked figures leaned forward. This voice was different. Younger. Curious. And yet, would she have saved you if the roles were reversed? Daniel didn't hesitate. "I don't know, but I did." "That's what matters," the council murmured again, voices blending into a strange chorus. The words were alien, sharp, but Daniel caught fragments through the translator. Risk. Chaos. Cannot. Dangerous. Death. Then a new sound broke through. Footsteps. The alien girl entered. Her silver hair caught the chamber's light, her eyes bright but nervous. She walked straight into the circle, her head held high though her hands trembled. The guards moved, but the council lifted their hands. Silence fell. She spoke, her voice steady but emotional. "He is no enemy. He saved me. I live because of him. If you punish him, you punish me too. His act was not chaos, it was courage." The chamber exploded in noise. Council members shouted in their language. Guards hissed. Some stood in outrage. The air itself seemed to shake. The lead counselor slammed a staff against the floor. The chamber fell silent once more. His voice thundered. "You dare defend him? He broke our law. You know the punishment." Her eyes filled with fire. "I know the law, but I also know truth. He could have left me."
"He did not."
"He risked his life. He gave me breath. If that is chaos, then perhaps chaos is better than cruelty." The room froze. For a moment, no one moved. Even Daniel was stunned. He had seen her guilt, her hesitation, but never this fire. She stood against her own people, for him. The counselor's voice grew darker. "You speak as if you are human yourself. You forget who you are." Her voice trembled but did not break. "I have not forgotten. But I will not forget him either." The council sat in silence. Finally, the leader spoke again. "Then you will be silent. You will leave this chamber, and you will remember your place." She wanted to argue more. Daniel could see it in her eyes. But under the weight of so many stares, she stepped back. She glanced at Daniel once, just once, before turning and leaving. That glance was enough. A promise. A spark. When the doors closed behind her, the council turned back to Daniel. The leader's voice was final. "Human, you are a threat. You will remain in chains until your sentence is decided. There will be no trial. Only judgment." Daniel's chest tightened. "And what judgment is that?" The counselor's mask gleamed in the light. "Death." The guards seized him, dragging him back toward the cell. His body ached, but his mind burned hotter than ever. He had expected death before, in battle and fire, but not like this. Not in silence. Not for saving someone's life. Yet as he was pulled away, one thought echoed in his mind. The girl had spoken. She had stood for him. And that meant she might stand again. Back in the prison cell, Daniel sat against the wall, chains biting his wrists. His breath was heavy, but his eyes glowed with defiance. They think they've already won, he muttered to himself. But they don't understand. I'm human, and humans don't break easy. The hum of the glowing walls answered him, steady and cold. But inside his chest, something else grew. Not fear, not despair. Hope. Because he had seen it in her eyes. The alien girl wasn't finished yet. The prison cell was colder now. Daniel sat against the glowing wall, his wrists raw from the chains. His thoughts were heavy, but one memory kept him awake. The alien girl's voice echoing in the council chamber. If that is chaos, then perhaps chaos is better than cruelty. That single line replayed again and again in his mind. The guards believed he was broken, but Daniel wasn't. Not yet. He had survived battles, fire, hunger. He could survive this too. But deep down, he knew survival might not depend on him. It might depend on her. Hours later, soft footsteps approached. The glow of the hallway revealed her silhouette. The girl stepped into view, silver hair shimmering faintly, eyes sharper than before. She looked different tonight. Stronger, more determined. Daniel stood slowly, his chains rattling. You came back. She pressed her hand against the bars. Her voice was quiet but firm. They have decided. Tomorrow you will be executed. Daniel's chest tightened. He forced a smirk, but it didn't reach his eyes. Well, at least they're not wasting time. She shook her head. It is wrong. Everything about this is wrong. Daniel stepped closer, then stopped them. You're one of them. They'll listen to you. Her expression hardened. No, they will not. The council does not listen. The council only rules. She glanced at the guard stationed far down the corridor, then lowered her voice. But I will not allow this. You saved me. Now I must save you. Daniel blinked. You'll break their laws. For me? Her jaw tightened. Yes, I will break them all. For a moment, silence hung between them. Daniel studied her face. This wasn't guilt anymore. It was fire, he whispered. Then we'll both be fugitives. Her lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. Better fugitives than cowards. That night she returned again. This time she carried something hidden beneath her robe. A device small and glowing faintly. She pressed it against the bars. The symbols along the walls flickered, dimmed, then went dark for a heartbeat before glowing again. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What was that? She whispered, a key, but it only buys us moments. Moments are enough, he said. She leaned closer, eyes fierce. Listen carefully. When the alarms sound, run. Follow me. Do not hesitate. Do not stop. If you stop, you die. Daniel gave a sharp nod. Understood. The next day arrived with heavy silence. The guards came, dragging Daniel from his cell. The council chamber was waiting. The crowd outside gathered in whispers, curious to see the human who had broken their laws. Execution was rare, public, a warning. Daniel walked with his head high, but inside his heart pounded like drums. His eyes searched the crowd until they found her. She stood at the edge of the chamber, her face calm but her hands hidden beneath her robe. Waiting. The counselor raised his staff. The human is guilty. He will be erased. The crowd murmured approval. The guards pressed Daniel to his knees. The executioner lifted a long, glowing blade. And then, darkness. The lights flickered, then died. Alarms screamed. Symbols across the wall shattered into static. The glowing blade froze in midair. The girl's voice rang out. Now, Daniel surged to his feet. The chains on his wrists fell apart as the device in her hands pulsed. She tossed him a small blade, alien metal, light but strong. He caught it without hesitation. The guards shouted, charging toward them. Daniel swung once, clean and sharp, forcing them back. The girl rushed to his side, pulling him through the chaos. The crowd erupted in panic. Alarms screamed louder, red lights flashing across the chamber. Move, she shouted, her hand gripping his arm. They ran through corridors, past guards. Every step was fire, every corner a trap. Daniel's heart raced, his lungs burned, but he never stopped. He couldn't, the girl led with certainty. She knew the palace like a map. Down hidden stairways, through service tunnels, past locked doors she opened with her device. Behind them, soldiers shouted. The sound of pursuit never left their ears. Daniel glanced at her as they ran. "Why are you doing this? You'll lose everything." She didn't look at him. "I already lost everything the moment you saved me. The council sees me as tainted. My place here is gone. But with you, I still have a choice." Her words struck him deeper than any weapon. They burst into a long tunnel glowing faintly with blue lights. Ahead, Daniel saw an exit, a massive door half open with the outside world just beyond. Freedom. But before they reached it, more guards appeared, blocking their way. Their weapons hummed, pointed straight at the fugitives. Daniel tightened his grip on the blade. "Looks like this is where we make our stand." The girl stepped forward, raising her device. "No, this is where we break the rules." The device pulsed again, sending a shockwave down the tunnel. The guards staggered, their weapons flickering uselessly. Daniel charged, knocking them aside. Together they pushed forward, forcing their way through. At last they broke past the line of soldiers and reached the final door. With one last surge of strength, Daniel shoved it open. Cold night air hit his face. Stars spread above, free and endless. He turned to her, breathing hard. "We're out. We're alive," but her eyes were still sharp, still burning. "No, this is only the beginning." Behind them, alarms still screamed. The entire alien city was awake now, hunting them. They were not free. Not yet, but Daniel knew one thing: she had chosen. She had broken every rule, every law, and now they would run together. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The city was alive with alarms. Red lights flashed across towers of glass and metal. Sirens screamed from every direction. Ships patrolled the skies like hunting hawks. Voices shouted through loudspeakers in a language Daniel could not understand. But he understood the meaning. The human had escaped. Find him. Kill him. Daniel and the alien girl ran through a narrow street, their footsteps echoing against the walls. Shadows stretched long in the light of search drones passing overhead. Every second felt stolen. Every breath was heavy with danger. The girl stopped suddenly and pressed Daniel into the shadows of an archway. A squad of armored soldiers marched past, their weapons glowing in the dark. Daniel held his breath, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might give them away. When the soldiers passed, she leaned close, whispering, "We cannot keep running like this. We need a plan." Daniel nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Where can we go? Where do we hide?" Her eyes were sharp. "We cannot hide. We must leave the city. There's only one way, the landing bay. If we reach it, we can take a ship." Daniel frowned. "And how do we get past the entire army between us and that bay?" Her lips pressed tight. Then she pulled a small map from her robe, glowing faintly with blue lines. Secret tunnels. Old passages built before the council took control. Most have been sealed, but some still remain. Daniel studied the glowing map. The tunnels twisted beneath the city like veins. Dangerous, narrow, but possible. He gave a short, grim smile. "Then let's take them. Better than waiting to die in the streets." They slipped through alleys and broken passageways, deeper into the city's underbelly. The air grew damp and heavy. Strange machines hummed in the walls, filling the tunnels with an eerie vibration. At one point, Daniel asked, "Why do you know these tunnels?" She hesitated, then replied, "My mother used them once. She was part of the resistance. She believed the council's laws were too cruel. She died for it." Daniel looked at her, surprised. Her fire made sense now. It came from blood, from history. She wasn't just saving him. She was finishing what her mother started, he said softly. "Then we'll make sure her fight wasn't wasted." Her eyes met his for a moment, and in them he saw both sorrow and strength. They reached a sealed door, its surface glowing with council symbols. Daniel frowned. "We're trapped?" She shook her head, pulling out the small device she had used before. She pressed it against the door. Sparks lit up. Symbols flickered, then cracked like shattered glass. With a low groan, the door slid open, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. But as they stepped inside, Daniel froze. Voices echoed behind them. Soldiers. The tunnel wasn't safe yet. "Go," he urged. "I'll hold them off." She grabbed his arm, fierce. "No, we go together." Daniel smirked. "You don't know humans very well." "We don't run from a fight. And you don't know me," she shot back. "I don't leave allies behind." For a moment, their stubbornness clashed like steel. Then Daniel laughed quietly. Fine. Together. They slipped deeper into the tunnel, the voices of soldiers growing louder behind them. The tunnel stretched far, lit only by faint strips of dying lights. Pipes hissed. The air smelled of oil and dust. At times, the floor shook as massive ships passed above the city. They moved fast, but not fast enough. Soon, the sound of boots echoed close. The soldiers had entered the tunnels, too. Daniel clenched his blade, his breath sharp. We're boxed in. The girl studied the map quickly. There is another way up. She pointed to a ladder built into the wall. Above, a hatch glowed faintly. Daniel shook his head. We'll be exposed. Her voice was calm but urgent. Better exposed than dead. They climbed fast. Daniel's muscles ached, but he pushed through. The girl opened the hatch, and they emerged into a large chamber filled with old machinery. Broken engines. Rusted pipes. Long abandoned, but they weren't alone. 2 guards patrolled the chamber, their weapons ready. Daniel cursed under his breath. The girl whispered, I'll distract them. You take the exit. He grabbed her wrist. No, I'll distract. You open the door. Her eyes burned. Why do you always risk yourself? Daniel smirked. Because that's what humans do. Before she could argue, he moved. Silent as he could, Daniel crept behind one guard. With a swift strike, he knocked the weapon aside and slammed the guard against a pipe. The second guard turned, raising his weapon. The girl acted fast. She used her device, sending a pulse that fried the weapon in the guard's hands. Daniel rushed forward, tackling him to the ground. When it was over, both guards lay unconscious. Daniel panted, wiping sweat from his face. Well, that wasn't too bad. The girl rolled her eyes but smiled faintly. You're reckless. And you're welcome, he said with a grin. They pushed through another door, finally reaching the last stretch of tunnels. Ahead, Daniel saw faint light, a cold blue glow. The landing bay, but as they approached, he froze. Hundreds of soldiers guarded the bay. Ships lined up in neat rows. Alarms blared louder here, echoing like drums of war. Daniel's jaw tightened. There's no way we can fight through that. The girl studied the guards, her eyes calculating. Then slowly she smiled. We don't fight them. We outsmart them. Daniel raised an eyebrow. How? She lifted her device, its glow pulsing stronger than ever. By turning their own city against them, Daniel chuckled. Now that sounds like something a human would say. The girl smirked. Maybe I'm learning. The landing bay stretched wide like an ocean of steel. Dozens of ships stood ready, their hulls glowing under the cold blue lights. Soldiers patrolled in tight formations, weapons scanning the shadows. Above, drones buzzed like angry insects, red eyes searching every corner. The air was thick with tension. Daniel and the alien girl crouched at the mouth of the tunnel, hidden behind broken machinery. Daniel's eyes narrowed as he counted the patrols. Too many. Far too many, he whispered. We'll never make it. They'll cut us down before we take 10 steps. The girl's silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Not if we make them chase us somewhere else. Daniel frowned. You mean, create a distraction? She nodded, holding up her device. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat. This can turn their defenses against them. But once I trigger it, the whole city will come alive. Doors, alarms, even the ships. Everything will turn to chaos. Daniel gave a crooked smile. Chaos, huh? That's supposed to be my specialty. She smirked, but her hands trembled slightly as she activated the device. A deep hum filled the chamber. Then, in an instant, the landing bay erupted. Ships powered on without warning, engines roaring. Cargo cranes jerked to life, swinging wildly. Doors slammed open and shut. Lights flickered, bathing the bay in red and white. Soldiers shouted in panic as drones spun out of control, firing at friend and foe alike. Daniel grinned. Now that's a distraction. Run! She shouted. They burst from their hiding place, sprinting across the open bay. Lasers cut through the air, but most of the soldiers were too busy fighting their own machines. Daniel ducked as a drone fired wildly, sparks raining down around him. He grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her faster. Every second mattered. Every breath was survival. But the Council's army was relentless. Some soldiers regrouped quickly, spotting the fugitives through the chaos. Shouts rang out. Weapons locked. A squad broke through, chasing them across the steel floor. Daniel and the girl weaved between machinery, barely dodging the blasts that scorched the ground at their feet. The sound of footsteps thundered behind them. Daniel panted. They're gaining on us. She scanned the bay quickly, her mind racing. Then she pointed, there! Maintenance lifts. If we take them up, we can reach the docking platforms faster. Without hesitation, they sprinted toward the lifts. But the soldiers followed, shouting, their weapons blazing. Daniel swung his stolen blade, deflecting a shot that came too close. Sparks lit the air. They leapt onto the lift, the girl slamming the controls. The platform jerked and began rising, slow but steady. The soldiers reached the base and fired upward. Blasts tore into the metal around them. Daniel crouched low, shielding the girl as much as he could. Faster! He shouted. She slammed the controls again. The lift groaned, then surged upward faster, carrying them into the maze of docking platforms high above. At the top, they leapt off, landing hard on the steel walkway. Daniel's legs burned, but he forced himself forward. Ahead, sleek ships waited, small, fast, perfect for escape. But more soldiers were already there, blocking the path. The girl's face hardened. They knew we would come here. Daniel raised his blade, teeth clenched. Then we make our own path, they charged. Daniel swung with raw force, driving soldiers back. His movements were reckless but powerful. The girl used her device, shorting out weapons and locking doors behind them. Together, they carved through the blockade step by step. The walkway shook as explosions erupted below. The chaos in the bay was spreading. Fires, collapsing cranes, ships tearing free of their docks. The whole city seemed to tremble. Then a sharp sound cut through the noise. A council guard captain appeared, larger than the rest, clad in black armor that shimmered with energy. His weapon glowed like fire, humming with deadly power. Daniel froze. I'm guessing he's not here to negotiate. The captain raised his weapon. The human dies now, he charged. Daniel met him head-on, steel against energy. The impact sent a shockwave across the platform. Sparks flew, steel screamed. Daniel's arms ached, but he pushed harder, teeth gritted. The girl shouted, "Keep him busy!" She ran toward the nearest ship, working the controls with frantic speed. Daniel ducked under a swing, slashing at the captain's armor. The blade glanced off, leaving only a faint scar. The captain's counterstrike slammed into his side, knocking the wind from his lungs. He staggered, but refused to fall. He thought of the girl, of her fire, of her promise. He would not fail now. With a roar, Daniel lunged again, striking with everything he had. The captain stumbled, caught off guard. Now, the girl shouted. Daniel dove, rolling across the platform as the ship's engines roared to life. She pulled him inside, slamming the hatch shut just as the captain's weapon struck the hull. The ship trembled as it lifted from the platform. Soldiers fired wildly, shots glancing off the hull. The girl's hands flew across the controls, her voice sharp. Hold on. The engines screamed and the ship blasted forward, tearing free from the docking bay. The force threw Daniel back into his seat. He laughed breathlessly. We actually did it, but his relief was short. Dozens of enemy fighters peeled away from the city, chasing them into the stars. The girl's eyes narrowed, her hands steady on the controls. It isn't over. Not yet. Daniel tightened his grip on the blade, even though it was useless now. His heart pounded. The chase wasn't finished. It was only moving to the stars. The stolen ship tore through the dark of space, engines screaming as enemy fighters closed in behind. Red bolts of plasma streaked past the hull, shaking the small vessel. Daniel gripped the side of his seat, every muscle tense. His body ached from the fight, but his spirit burned hotter than ever. The alien girl sat at the controls, her silver eyes locked on the stars ahead. Her hands moved fast, steady, guiding the ship through impossible maneuvers. They will not stop, she said calmly, though her voice carried strain. They will chase us until we are ashes. Daniel leaned forward. Then we don't give them the chance. He looked at the scanners. At least a dozen fighters tailed them, moving in perfect formation. Soldiers of the Council, disciplined, merciless, relentless. The ship was fast, but not faster than all of them. Daniel's mind raced. We need somewhere to hide. Somewhere they can't follow. The girl hesitated, then pointed to a sector on the star map. There, the shattered belt, asteroids, storms of debris. Dangerous even for skilled pilots. But if we make it through, they will not risk following. Daniel's lips curved in a sharp grin. Dangerous sounds perfect. They turned sharply, diving toward the shattered belt. Behind them, the fighters roared closer. The leader barked orders, and the entire swarm unleashed a storm of fire. Red streaks lit up the darkness, chasing them like angry ghosts. The ship shook violently as shots slammed against the shields. Panels flickered. Warning alarms blared. Daniel held tight, teeth clenched. The girl whispered to herself as she steered. Steady, steady. They plunged into the belt. The stars vanished behind walls of rock. Massive asteroids spun around them, colliding and breaking apart. Shards of metal and stone whirled like blades. The ship swerved left, then right, slipping through cracks barely wide enough for their hull. Enemy fighters followed, but not as skillfully. One crashed into a spinning rock, exploding in a flash of fire. Another clipped an asteroid, spiraling out of control. Daniel cheered. It's working. The rocks are thinning their numbers. The girl didn't look away from the controls. Do not cheer yet. We are not through. Her hands danced across the panel, weaving the ship through impossible paths. Daniel could barely breathe as asteroids missed them by inches. Sparks flew from the ceiling as the hull scraped against debris. Still, the girl's eyes never wavered. She was fire and focus, the storm bending to her will. At last, they broke through into open space. Silence fell for a heartbeat. Then Daniel exhaled, laughing breathlessly. We made it, but the scanners lit again. 3 enemy fighters had survived. They emerged from the belt, relentless as ever. Daniel cursed. They're still on us. The girl's jaw tightened. Then we finish this. The fighters closed in, their weapons ready. Daniel searched the ship desperately. No cannons. No heavy arms. Just speed and one desperate idea. He turned to her. Can you push the engines to maximum? Her eyes flickered. Yes, but the ship may not survive. Daniel grinned. Then we make it count. She hesitated only a moment, then slammed her hand on the controls. The engines screamed louder, the ship surging forward like a bullet. The fighters chased, but the gap closed too slowly. Daniel's eyes locked on a massive asteroid ahead, its surface glowing faintly with energy storms. He pointed. Head straight for it. The girl's eyes widened. That is suicide. Trust me, he said. His voice was steady, firm. She studied him for a heartbeat, then nodded. They dove toward the asteroid. The fighters followed, firing nonstop. Bolts of plasma scorched the ship's hull. Warning screamed. The asteroid loomed larger and larger. At the last second, Daniel shouted, Now! Pull up! The girl yanked the controls. The ship skimmed the asteroid's surface and sparks flying as debris scraped the hull. But the fighters were too close, too focused. 2 slammed straight into the asteroid, exploding in brilliant fire. The third pulled up too late, its wing torn off by rock. It spun helplessly, vanishing into the storm. Silence filled the cabin. Only the hum of the engines remained. They were free. Daniel leaned back, gasping for air. He laughed softly, shaking his head. Well, that was close. The girl let out a long breath, her hand still trembling on the controls. Slowly, she turned to him. Her eyes softened. You risked everything again. For both of us, he smirked. Guess I'm just unpredictable like that. For the first time, she smiled. Truly smiled. It was small, but it was real. Daniel looked out at the endless stars. So where do we go now? Her smile faded into something serious. We cannot go back. The council will hunt us forever. I have no home now, and you? You are a fugitive. Daniel's voice was calm, steady. Then maybe we build a new home. Out there, together. Her eyes widened slightly, surprised. Then she nodded slowly. Together. They sat in silence for a while, staring at the stars stretching forever ahead. The ship was battered, their supplies low, their enemies relentless. The future was uncertain, dangerous, full of shadows. But Daniel felt no fear, because he wasn't alone anymore, because he had seen something in her that the council would never understand. Courage, choice, humanity. And as long as they had that, they weren't just survivors, they were free.